They say betrayal starts in whispers. But for me, it started with a smell. A faint trace of cologne that didn't belong to me. The kind of thing you wouldn't notice if you weren't already looking for a reason not to trust someone. But I wasn't looking. Not then. Not yet. It was a Thursday night. Late October. The kind of night where the wind has just enough bite to make a man appreciate the warmth of a couch, a cold beer, and the predictable rhythm of football on TV. I was in my usual spot, corner of the sectional, feet up, beer sweating on the coffee table. I had the game on mute. Not because I didn't care who won, but because my thoughts were louder than the commentary. She was supposed to be out with Katie. Again. Katie, her best friend since college. I liked Katie well enough. A little much sometimes, sure, but harmless. Or so I thought. My wife, Elena, had been seeing her more than usual lately. Weeknights. Even weekends. Said Katie was going through a rough patch, needed someone to talk to. I didn't ask too many questions. Elena's always been the kind of woman who carries other people's burdens like they're her own. I respected that. But here's the thing. That night, something didn't sit right. She came home around 11. Quietly. Too quietly. Like she was trying not to wake a man who was still wide awake. She didn't expect to find me on the couch, apparently. "Hey," I said casually, eyes still on the screen. "How's Katie?" She paused for half a beat. Then, "She's okay. Just needed to vent. Long day." I nodded and smiled, but I caught it right then, the scent. Not her usual perfume. Not even Katie's floral nonsense that sometimes lingered on Elena's clothes after their hugs. No. This was sharp. Masculine. Something woody, maybe a hint of leather. Not mine. Not from our house. "Everything all right?" I asked. She blinked. "Yeah, why? You just seem a little tense." She let out a laugh, too loud, too forced, and shrugged off her coat. "It was just a lot. You know Katie." She walked past me toward the stairs. And I let her. But something stayed with me. That smell. That quick, stiff posture when she realized I was still up. The way her eyes didn't meet mine. Small things. Things you dismiss if you want to believe everything's fine. But belief is a tricky thing. It needs a foundation. And mine had started to crack. I took a sip of my beer. It had gone warm. Football still played on mute in front of me, but I wasn't watching. My mind was replaying the last few weeks. The late nights. The unexplained wine in the trash, expensive stuff, too, the kind she never touched before. And then there was the other night, I'd reached for her jacket to hang it up, and it slipped from my hand. She jumped like I'd caught her doing something wrong. It was her jacket that smelled the strongest. Like she'd been wrapped around someone. Maybe I'm crazy, I thought. Maybe I'm tired. Or maybe, just maybe, the woman I married is lying to me. It wasn't a full-blown suspicion. Not yet. Just a hunch. The kind that starts as a whisper in the back of your mind, and doesn't shut up. I used to believe that lies had volume. That if someone betrayed you, you'd hear it in their voice, see it in their eyes, that the truth would break through like a crack in glass. Turns out, lies are quiet. They sit beside you at breakfast. Kiss you goodbye in the driveway. Text you, love you. Be home late. And you believe it, until you don't. A few days after that Thursday night, I started noticing more cracks in Elena's stories. Nothing dramatic, nothing you could pin down as proof. Just enough to make the back of my neck itch. She said she went to a cafe with Katie, but she came home smelling like someone else's cologne again. Not strong. Just a trace. Something musky and unfamiliar that stuck to her scarf like a secret. Cafe must be packed, I said, sniffing the air as casually as I could. You pick up every scent in the place. She glanced at me, that half-second too long, then smiled. Yeah, the barista spilled something near us. Whole place reeked. Barista. Right. I said nothing. Just nodded, sipping my coffee, filing it away. That's how it starts, quiet observations, collected like puzzle pieces you don't even realize you're putting together. Until one day, the picture starts to form. Next thing I noticed was the wine. Now, Elena has never been a wine person. Give her a cold beer or some bourbon on a rare occasion, and she's good. But suddenly, she was buying Merlot. Pinot. Labels I couldn't even pronounce. I asked her once, since when do you drink this stuff? Oh, she said, brushing it off. Katie and I are doing this thing where we try a new bottle every week. Right. A wine club for two. But the bottle in the trash that week? It was unopened just 2 nights ago. We hadn't had anyone over. I sure didn't drink it. She was drinking with someone, just not me. And then came the message. It happened on a Tuesday. She was in the shower, and her phone lit up on the kitchen counter while I was grabbing a beer. Now look, I don't believe in snooping. Never have. But when a phone lights up at 9:47 p.m. with a text from Katie that says, "Hope you didn't catch on." Well, that's not something you can unsee. My hands went cold. The kind of cold that doesn't come from the fridge. I stared at the screen. I didn't open it. Didn't need to. Just that one message told me more than any confession ever could. Hope he didn't catch on. Catch on to what? She came downstairs a few minutes later in sweatpants and a robe, toweling her hair like everything was fine. Want to watch something? She asked. Yeah, I said, handing her the remote. You pick. We sat there for the better part of an hour, watching some mindless crime show. I couldn't tell you a single plot point. I was watching her, how easily she laughed at the screen, how relaxed she seemed. Like nothing was wrong. Like I wasn't sitting beside a stranger. That night, I lay awake next to her, staring at the ceiling. My mind ran in loops, the smells, the wine, the message. Still, I didn't say anything. I wasn't ready for the fallout. No, this wasn't the time to accuse. It was the time to watch. To listen. To be sure. I'd always trusted Elena, not blindly, but deeply. She was my wife. My partner. But now? Now I was seeing patterns in the smoke. And something told me, this fire was just getting started. People talk a lot about gut instinct. They'll tell you to trust your gut like it's some mystical compass pointing north. But what they don't tell you is that your gut doesn't whisper, it roars. And it doesn't point. It drags. Mine had been dragging me for weeks. I sat in the garage that Saturday morning, pretending to rearrange some shelves while Elena packed her gym bag. She said she was heading to a yoga class with Katie, again. Funny thing was, I'd driven past that studio the last few weekends just to clear my head. Parking lot hadn't been full. Studio looked dark. The last time I checked their website, the place wasn't even open on Sundays anymore. I didn't say anything. Not to her. Not yet. Because here's the truth, if you confront someone with a suspicion, they'll lie to your face. But if you wait, if you watch, they'll show you everything you need to know. Before she left, I offered to check her tire pressure. Said the weather had been cold, could throw it off. She smiled and tossed me the keys. While she went upstairs for her water bottle, I knelt beside the driver's seat, reached under, and peeled off a strip of black electrical tape from the roll I had tucked in my pocket. I pressed a fresh piece under the edge of the seat rail. Invisible unless you were looking for it. The trick wasn't the tape. The trick was breaking it. If she moved that seat back or forward, say, if someone taller than her was driving, that tape would tear. Simple. Clean. No GPS. No wiretaps. Just an old-school tell. She left 10 minutes later with a kiss on the cheek that felt staged. I watched her drive off through the blinds. And waited. She got back around 2 hours later. Wore the same yoga pants. The same clean hair. A little too clean. No sweat, no gym water bottle, no yoga mat. Class run long? I asked. No, just grabbed a smoothie with Katie afterward, she replied, tossing her keys in the bowl by the door. Why? Just curious. I walked to the garage, opened her car door, and checked the tape. It was torn. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was a metronome, swinging between disbelief and strategy. I wasn't going crazy. I wasn't being irrational. I was being careful. And careful is dangerous, especially when someone mistakes it for clueless. She'd think I didn't notice the cologne. The change in tone when she lied. The fact that she suddenly cared about matching lingerie when we weren't going anywhere. She probably thought I was just another oblivious husband watching football while the world burned under his roof. But I wasn't asleep. I was awake. Wide awake. I started documenting. Just the small stuff at first, times she left, what she said, how long she was gone. I started snapping photos of receipts, checking mileage on her car, noting the dates when wine bottles disappeared and reappeared. I wasn't obsessed. I was organized. Because there's a point where hurt stops being the fuel, and logic takes over. That Monday, I left work early and drove to a coffee shop near where Katie supposedly lived. I parked and waited, sipping terrible coffee and watching the entrance. She never showed. At 6:12 p.m., I got a text from Elena. Running late, catching up with Katie. Be home by 7. Except she wasn't with Katie. Katie, as I'd already confirmed, was in Dallas visiting her sister. I'd seen it on her Instagram. A boomerang of 2 margaritas by the pool. Caption, Sister Weekend. Elena didn't know I followed Katie's sister. Details. Always in the details. That night, as we lay in bed, she rolled toward me and rested her hand on my chest. Same as always. Same gesture she'd made 1,000 times before. Only now, it felt like a weapon. And I knew, in that moment, I couldn't play this game halfway. If I was going to do this, I had to do it right. No outbursts. No accusations. No half-truths. Just facts. Cold, hard, undeniable. I whispered to myself in the dark. I'm not paranoid. I just want the truth. And the truth? It was coming. There's a moment in every man's life when he reaches for a lifeline. Not because he's weak. Not because he's breaking. But because even the strongest man knows, when the ground starts shifting beneath your feet, you don't stand still. You anchor to something or someone. And for me, that anchor was my 2 closest friends, Mark and Tyler. We'd known each other since college. Weddings. Job changes. The birth of our kids. They were the kind of guys who'd show up at 2 a.m. if your truck broke down. No questions asked. So when I called and said, "Can we meet up? I need to talk," they were at my door that night. We sat in my garage. Door half open. 3 beers sweating on the workbench. The kind of setup that said, this isn't small talk. I didn't jump in right away. Just let the silence hang a bit. Then I said it. I think Elena's cheating. They didn't speak right away. Tyler was the first to break the silence. Damn, man. You sure? No, I said. But I've seen things. Smelled things. Messages. Weird behavior. Her stories don't line up. Mark let out a long breath. You want us to follow her? I looked at him. I want to know where she's really going when she says she's with Katie. I want confirmation. I'm not going to accuse her without evidence. I just need the truth. He nodded. All right. Let's do it. Over the next week, we built a loose plan. Tyler would casually swing by the gym one evening to see if Elena's car was there. Mark said he had a buddy who lived near the wine bar she mentioned last Thursday, said he'd ask him to keep an eye out. And I played the part. Kissed her goodbye every morning. Let her tell her stories. Took mental notes. That Friday, Elena said she was going out with Katie again. She's having a rough time, she said, pulling on a denim jacket. I might be home late. I nodded. No worries. She smiled, kissed me like nothing was wrong. As the door closed behind her, I texted the guys. She's gone. Tyler, I'm heading to the yoga studio now. Mark, I'll check the bar around 7. I sat in my truck outside the neighborhood, engine off, heart pounding. This was it. I was finally going to know. Hours passed. No updates. I texted once or twice, both said nothing unusual. No sign of her car. No sign of Elena at the places she claimed to be. Finally, around 9:40 p.m., I heard the garage door. She came in like it was just another night. Kissed me on the head. Said, sorry, Katie wouldn't stop talking. Everything okay? I asked. Yeah. She's just going through it. You know. I nodded and watched her walk upstairs, still wearing the jacket. Later, I checked the inside collar when she tossed it over the chair. Different cologne again. Stronger this time. And suddenly, something didn't sit right. Not with her, with them. The next day, I met Mark for lunch. I appreciate you checking the bar, I said. He gave a casual shrug. No problem, man. Didn't see her car, but I wasn't there long. Maybe I missed her. I nodded. Funny thing, her car has a GPS. I've had it logged since Tuesday. He froze. Not enough for a normal person to notice. But I'm not a normal person anymore. I'm a man who sees through glass now. Guess it didn't matter, I added, pretending to drop it. She says she was at Katie's, anyway. He picked up his drink and muttered something about traffic. That's when it started to click. Later that night, Tyler texted. Tyler, didn't see her at yoga. You sure she said she was going there? Yeah. Same place as last week. Tyler, Weird. But it wasn't just weird. It was off. I remembered something Elena once said about Mark, he always smells like wood smoke and that cedar cologne. Said it last winter when we all had drinks together. The same cologne I smelled on her jacket, more than once. It hit me like a gut punch. Mark. Not a stranger. Not a coworker. My friend. My brother. I didn't say anything. Not to him. Not to Tyler. Not even to Elena. Because I wasn't just looking for betrayal anymore. Now. I was looking for confirmation. And revenge. That night, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, toothbrush in hand, looking at my own eyes. I'm not crazy, I whispered. And I'm not helpless. I was going to tear this house of cards down. But first, I had to finish stacking it. There's a kind of silence that hits you when the truth shows its face. Not the silence of peace. The silence of impact. Like the moment right after a car crash, your ears ringing, your heart pounding, and the world around you just, frozen. That's what it felt like the night I saw the message. It was a Tuesday. Elena had gone upstairs to shower. I was in the living room, pretending to watch some documentary I couldn't even name now. She'd left her phone charging on the end table. And usually, I'd never touch it. That was our rule. Privacy. Boundaries. But that night, I didn't care about rules anymore. It buzzed. I glanced. The name on the screen stopped me cold. Mark. And the message? He's too smart. We need to be more careful. That was it. 12 words. But they were enough to rip the floor out from under me. I didn't open the thread. Didn't need to. Instead, I sat back slowly on the couch, heart pounding in my ears. Mark, my friend of 15 years. My best man. Godfather to our son. And Elena? Whatever they were doing, it wasn't new. This was a coordinated betrayal. Calculated. Cruel. The next day, I tested the water. I texted Mark. Casual. Hey, man. Want to grab a beer this week? Been a minute. He replied 2 minutes later. Yeah, definitely. Things have been nuts. Friday night? I said sure. But I didn't intend to show up. What I wanted was to see if he'd bring it up to Elena. Sure enough, that night after dinner, she said, "Hey, are you meeting Mark this Friday?" I raised an eyebrow. Yeah, how'd you know? He mentioned it earlier, she said, not missing a beat. Lies. Delivered so smoothly I almost admired it. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed up in the garage, sitting in my truck with the windows cracked and a pad of paper on my lap. Writing it all down. Every inconsistency. Every time she left. Every friend I now had to question. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was conspiracy. I started watching them closer. Not just Elena. All of them. Texts. Calls. Body language. Social media footprints. The next week, I created a burner Instagram account. Used a random name, followed a few local bars, and quietly added a handful of people from our circle. No photo. No details. Nothing traceable. 2 days later, I saw a post from Tyler's cousin, a photo at a bar downtown. Tagging Mark. Tagging Elena. The caption. Wild night with the crew. I wasn't even mentioned. She told me she was home with a headache that night. I stared at that post for a long time. Not because I was surprised. Because I wasn't. That weekend, I stopped by Tyler's house under the pretense of returning a tool. He seemed off. Guarded. Short answers. Nervous laughter. I watched him fidget when I brought up Elena. She seems a little stressed lately, I said casually. Think something's bothering her? He hesitated. I don't know, man. Maybe work. His eyes didn't match his voice. I didn't push it. Just nodded, handed him the wrench, and left. But as I walked back to my truck, I glanced over my shoulder and saw him standing at the door, watching me leave. By Sunday, I was done pretending. I wasn't going to ask for the truth anymore. I was going to build it. Quietly. Methodically. Like a man digging a tunnel under a burning house. That night, I made 3 decisions. I would hire a private investigator. Not some cheap hack, a professional. The kind that doesn't just find answers, they document them. I'd stop talking about my suspicions. No more asking questions. No more giving them a chance to adjust. Let them think I was still in the dark. Let them get comfortable. I'd prepare for war. But not with fists. With facts. Because revenge isn't about rage. It's about control. I laid next to Elena that night, her breath soft and steady beside me. And as I stared at the ceiling, I thought to myself. This is the last time you'll lie beside me without knowing I already know. The thing about revenge? It can't be emotional. Not if you want it to land. Rage is sloppy. Rage makes you loud, reckless. That's not what this was anymore. This was discipline. This was order. And I was done playing defense. I hired the private investigator on a Tuesday afternoon. Her name was Jordan Bishop. Ex-cop. Quiet. Sharp as a scalpel. We met at a diner off Route 12. Neutral ground. She ordered black coffee and didn't ask me how I was holding up. I appreciated that. You want confirmation? She asked. I nodded. Photos. Times. Places. Names. You want video? I hesitated. Then I said, yes. I want the truth. However it looks. She nodded like she'd heard it 100 times. Probably had. For the next 4 weeks, I lived 2 lives. One was the husband. The guy who kissed his wife goodbye in the morning, asked how her day was, watched shows on the couch with her like nothing had changed. The other was the ghost, the man in the shadows, feeding Jordan license plates, timelines, restaurants they favored, addresses I'd memorized from Elena's phone bill. I started documenting everything. I had a spreadsheet on a flash drive I kept in my truck's spare tire compartment, labeled Camp Budget 2023. Inside, date, time, Elena's stated location, her actual location, via the PI, names of who she was with, receipts, mileage, surveillance logs. A full dossier. By the 3rd week, I had photos of her and Mark together outside a boutique hotel. Twice. Another shot of her and Tyler outside some wine bar, way too close for just friends. Then there was the restaurant, one I'd taken her to on our 10th anniversary. She was there again. Not with me. And not once did she look guilty. Just comfortable. Like she'd done this before. Many times. I didn't cry. Not once. There was no space left for grief. Just precision. Every time Jordan sent me another update, I copied the files. Duplicated them to 2 encrypted drives. One in my gun safe. One in a safety deposit box at the credit union. She called it paranoid. I called it bulletproof. One afternoon, I sat in my truck watching a live feed from Jordan's surveillance team. Elena and Mark were coming out of a hotel. Her hair was tied up. His shirt untucked. They laughed. He touched her lower back, like he owned her. I sat there, watching it on my phone, drinking gas station coffee, hands steady. And I remember thinking. This is what the end looks like. The next phase was legal. I scheduled a consult with an attorney out of town, someone far from our social circle. His name was Carter Finch. No nonsense. Direct. I handed him the flash drive, didn't say a word. He plugged it into his laptop, browsed for 5 minutes, then leaned back in his chair. Mr. Hale, if you wanted a war, you've already won it. All that's left is the ceremony. I don't want a war, I said. I want a clean cut. I want her to feel it, but I don't want to raise my voice. I want her to realize she was exposed the entire time. He smiled like he'd heard that before, too. Carter helped me prepare the documents, divorce papers, asset logs, evidence files, all to be presented at once. But I wasn't mailing them. No. This was going to be face to face. A controlled environment. My house. My rules. I picked a Saturday evening. Invited Mark and Tyler over, said it had been too long. Told Elena I wanted to do a little dinner, maybe watch the game. Said I missed the old crew. She smiled. Sure. That sounds nice. Nice. Yeah. It was going to be nice. The night before, I printed everything. Photos. Bank statements. A copy of the hotel reservation in Mark's name, paid with his company card. Screenshots of texts. Surveillance stills. GPS logs. Everything. I arranged it in a folder. Labeled it, Truth. I placed it on the mantel. Visible. Just out of reach. I practiced what I would say. Not dramatic. Just clear. I laid out glasses, cleaned the grill, lit the patio torches. Because if I was going to burn it all down, I was going to do it beautifully. They showed up right on time. Mark first, casual as ever, six-pack in hand, grin on his face like he didn't spend Tuesday night in a hotel bed with another man's wife. Tyler followed, a little more cautious. Like maybe he'd started to sense the ground wasn't as solid as it used to be. Elena came down the stairs wearing that soft blue sweater I used to love. She kissed my cheek and asked if I needed help in the kitchen. No, I said, calm as ice. Just sit down. I'll bring everything out. We ate outside. Steaks, grilled asparagus, craft beer. Light conversation. Mark told some dumb story about his office. Tyler laughed a little too loud. Elena kept reaching for my hand under the table, performing, like always. It was almost impressive. Almost. When the plates were cleared and the last sips of beer were gone, I stood up. Grabbed the bourbon bottle. I've got something to say, I said, topping off everyone's glass. Just one toast. Then you're free to go. They raised their glasses. I raised mine, looked around the table. To truth, I said. And to finally seeing things clearly. They clinked. Smiled. And that's when I walked inside and came back with the folder. Labeled in bold, block letters, Truth. I set it on the table like a loaded weapon. Nobody moved. Elena stared at it. Mark blinked. Tyler's hand tightened around his glass. I opened the folder and began laying it out. Photo by photo. Page by page. Elena. Mark. Tyler. Hotel receipts. GPS logs. Surveillance stills. I didn't say a word. Just let the silence drag its teeth across the table. Mark was the first to speak. What the hell is this? I looked at him. Calm. It's everything you thought I'd never know. He stood up. Look, man. Sit down. He froze. I turned to Elena. She was pale. Shaking. She hadn't looked at a single photo. Just stared at her glass like it might drown her. You've got nothing to say? I asked. Still nothing. So I kept going. You lied. 4 months. Maybe longer. And you didn't do it alone. You had help. From the people I trusted the most. My best friend. My wife. My so-called brother. Tyler finally spoke up. Man, I didn't. I cut him off. Save it. I've got the messages. The nights you covered for her. The fake check-ins. All of it. He sat back like I'd slapped him. I turned to Elena. Reached into the folder and slid a final envelope across the table. This is a copy of the divorce filing. You'll be served officially next week. But I wanted you to hear it from me first. She looked up then. Eyes glassy, mouth trembling. Please. But I wasn't interested in begging. Not anymore. You don't need to say anything. You already did. Every night you walked in here smelling like someone else. Every time you lied to my face and said you were with Katie. Every time you kissed me with his cologne still on your clothes. Mark stood again. This is messed up. You think you're the victim. You don't know what your marriage was like. I looked at him, dead steady. You'll be getting a cease and desist from my attorney, along with a formal notice of trespass. You're not welcome here again. Not ever. He didn't say another word. Tyler got up and walked inside without looking at me. He knew his part. He knew it was over too. Elena didn't move. I finally stood and poured the last of the bourbon into my glass. To all of you, I said quietly, you didn't break me. You freed me. And with that, I walked inside, closed the door behind me, and left them sitting there under the patio lights, surrounded by photos of the lives they destroyed. Later that night, I stood in the living room. It was quiet. The kind of quiet I hadn't heard in months. I poured myself a fresh drink. Sat on the couch. No football this time. No distractions. Just the hum of freedom settling into my chest. The house felt lighter. The lies were gone. And so were they. I picked up the folder one last time, flipped through the pages, then dropped it into the fire. Watched the paper curl and blacken. Felt the heat on my face. And as the flames ate the last of the evidence, I smiled. I didn't lose. I didn't break. I didn't scream or beg or fight dirty. No. I won. Because I walked away clean. Because I'm finally free. Final line, spoken slowly, like a weight lifted. I didn't lose. I was never losing. I was just waiting for the truth. And now. I'm not broken. I'm not bitter. I'm free.